Hi, I'm James Shillinglaw, and I'm here today with David Zipkin, who is the co-founder and vice president of Tradewind Aviation. Now, what's Tradewind Aviation? We're going to tell you all about it. Obviously, it's kind of sort of private charter and other things to some very exclusive destinations around the world, mostly right now in the Caribbean and even Nantucket, places like that. And it's a thing you can use for your clients in this day and age when privacy is king and everybody wants to have that private experience, especially for your upscale clients. But David's going to tell you all about that and more on Insider Travel Report. First of all, David, how are you and where are you?
I am doing very well, thank you. I am in Connecticut, and I actually just returned from St. Bart's. This time of year, I go back and forth quite often for work. I swear it's all work.
Yeah, well, that's why I try to tell everybody. But we know that's our secret, right? But yeah, no. Right now, I was going to say if you're back in Connecticut right now, even though it's not as bad as it was, I think St. Bart's is beckoning for you to come back. Let's tell us a little bit about Tradewind Aviation, what it is, when it was founded, and exactly the type of company it is.
Sounds good. Yeah, absolutely. So Tradewind is an aviation solutions company. We actually founded the company in 2001, which is a strange year for founding an aviation company, but it actually made sense to us. We saw that after September 11th, air travel would become much more difficult. And we identified that as a great time to start a private aviation business. We started with one aircraft. We've built it organically throughout the years. We're now operating 24 aircraft in two different regions, and in fact, most of North America. But really, that's really where it was born out of. It was this idea that air travel would become more difficult, which it did, and flying out of private terminals and also flying in smaller environments. It was just a lot easier for efficiency.
No, absolutely. I know obviously 9/11 put a whole new face on private aviation, and now we have COVID-19, which is also putting a whole new face on private aviation. People want to travel with their friends and family, or by themselves, not in larger groups as much as I do that. I am on regular airlines now. Don't love it all the time, but I've gotten by. Now, so you're basically sort of a private charter operation, but you also offer kind of regular shuttles to certain destinations, correct?
That's correct, yeah. So we started life as a private charter operator, and the original focus was short distances. We operate relatively small aircraft. At the beginning, it was 8-passenger Cessna Grand Caravans. Now it's also 8-passenger Pilatus PC-12s, which is a more robust turboprop with better speed and range. The idea being on short distance flights, getting in a jet or certainly in an airliner jet is quite inefficient when you look at the overall sort of time in travel. If you're spending an hour in the airport just to fly 45 minutes, it makes for a less than desirable experience. And so the idea was to really tackle that area where we saw that as a need. Very soon into our life, in the beginning we were flying a lot of Northeast New York to the Cape and Islands, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, Hamptons, etc. And what we realized very early on is that a lot of our clients were commuting. So they were flying out on a Friday, they were coming back on a Sunday.
Right.
They were homeowners. Their family would spend the summer there, and the bread earner would have to go back and forth. And because of that, they were flying as ones and twos, not filling the aircraft. And so a group of them came to us and said, "Hey, could we share a charter?" We said, "Sure, as long as somebody's paying the bill, that's fine." And we said, "Well, what time would you like to go?" They spoke with each other. I think back in the day it was on AOL Instant Messenger. And they would come back to us and say, "Okay, Friday 5 p.m., Sunday 5 p.m. And so that became our scheduled flight for the weekend. And that really evolved into what is now what we call a shared charter flight. It's really scheduled service.
Right.
And we're flying to Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard in the high season. We're flying 40 or 50 flights a day.
Wow. And so you're kind of the airline for Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard all of a sudden, huh?
Correct. Yeah. And what really draws them to what we do is the efficiency of it. And, we call it a shared charter primarily because of, we're not using main airline terminals. We're using the private FBO. So when you private charter, of course, you drive right up to the airplane, you get on. There's none of the traditional airport airline terminal hassle. And so when we created the shared charter, the scheduled flights, we kept it in that environment. So it's really the charter experience, but you can buy it by the seat, which was really quite new at the time.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you started up there, and then now you're in the Caribbean, and we mentioned St. Bart's. Where else do you fly in the Caribbean, or is it really St. Bart's focused?
So currently it's St. Bart's. We pre-COVID, we had several routes to also Anguilla from San Juan, to Nevis from San Juan. And as we come out of this, we're looking at relaunching those routes in addition to St. Bart's, of course, and quite a few others. We are long on the Caribbean. We love it down there, and we feel that the islands that are more difficult to reach are really special places. St. Bart's, Anguilla, they have relatively short runways, no traditional airline service, and that's where we really add a lot of value. San Juan and Antigua are two main hubs. So traditionally, you fly down on either an airliner and connect with us, or you fly down on a private jet and connect with us wing to wing.
No, that's logical. Now, how big is your fleet? You said 24?
24 aircraft right now. 21 of those are Pilatus PC-12s, which, as I mentioned, are the 8-passenger turboprops, and the other 3 are Citation jets. So your traditional light jet, private jets.
And what's the range of those aircraft?
So the jets are great for north-south, New York, Boston to Florida, back and forth, which is something we're doing quite a bit of this time of year. We can also go out easily to the Midwest, Texas, and a bit of Colorado. It's not a coast-to-coast aircraft. It's about kind of a 2/3 of the way across the country sort of aircraft. But they're very good for those types of flights, and they're also very good for going down to the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, and even the Eastern Caribbean. The Pilatuses, the turboprops, the range, technically the range is pretty long, but it's because it's a bit slower than a jet. They really make most sense for about 300-mile range, which, if you draw a circle around the New York area or San Juan area, that encompasses, everything in the Northeast up through southern Canada, Western New York, and down to the Carolinas even, and of course the Cape and Islands and everything like that is included. And in the Caribbean, it's everything from St. Bart's down to Antigua, even down as far as Mustique, and then of course on the western side out to Dominican Republic and those places.
Well, they're all close together, and it sounds like you got a great area to cover. What are some of the amenities offered on board your aircraft?
Sure. So we, on every flight, we have drinks and snacks, including wine and beer, all complimentary, of course. It's a smaller aircraft, so we don't have there's no room for a flight attendant. So we have a snack basket and a cooler, and it's all, sort of help yourself. And it's quite fun for the clients because they get to know each other and so on. We did take a little bit out of that for COVID concerns. We didn't want too much of, snack wrappers and so forth all over the place. But certainly as things get better, we'll be reintroducing that. We also do special event stuff on board. So if a client tells us, for example, that it's their anniversary or birthday, we'll have flowers or cupcakes or something like that. So we try to make it, as sort of bespoke as possible, depending on what the situation is.
No, it sounds great. And obviously with COVID, you've had to do a few different things. And that actually leads to the question, why do you think Tradewind Aviation is really such a great aviation product in this new era of COVID-19 travel?
Mm-hmm. Well, being in flying private is inherently, safer from an exposure standpoint, both in the aircraft, but also, and probably more importantly, through the airport experience. When you're going to a private jet terminal, you're pretty much going straight to the aircraft, no TSA, et cetera, and just the chances of exposure are lower. And as a result, private aviation is really going through a pretty significant boom right now. We, over the summer and into the fall, saw a much higher percentage of new to private clients come into the fold than we had ever seen before. And we're really well positioned for that because because we fly smaller, relatively small aircraft, we're not flying Gulfstreams or transatlantic type aircraft. The price point tends to be a little bit lower, and so it's a good entry point for anyone considering private aviation who hasn't done it before. So, we feel that we're very well positioned for not only what happened and what continues to go on, but also as people sort of realize the other benefits of flying private. We feel a lot of those folks will stay with us. They say, once you go private, it's tough to go back. And
yeah, they used to say that about first class, and once you're up in first, you can't go back.
True.
I think there's an old Seinfeld episode about that one, but apparently that's probably true of private aviation as well, right?
True. And in semi-private, the scheduled flights that we fly, as I mentioned before, it's really set up to be as private-like as possible. We're also flying with the private terminals. We have private lounges where people are away from the big crowds, and even in that category, it really is much safer from an exposure standpoint.
No, that's great. Now, what have your bookings looked like since the onset of the pandemic, and then obviously as we start hopefully to emerge from this?
Well, as with everyone, the first few months were rough. We all went into our lockdown. We interestingly, towards the middle to end of June, as things started opening up from a travel restriction standpoint, we really saw a very big boom in demand. The demand was there; it was really just pent up.
Right.
In some ways, it caught us off guard. We'd kind of prepared for the worst. It was very difficult to project what the summer was going to look like. But thankfully, towards the end of June, business really came back. We had a bit of a slow midsummer compared to what we usually do, because while on the surface we're flying to leisure destinations, a big part of our business is actually the commuters going back and forth to work. And so if you don't need to go to an office and you stay in Nantucket for the summer, you don't need to.
You don't go back. Yeah, everybody. Nobody's going into an office now, right? Still right. Today, I think a lot of people aren't.
True. And that put a bit of a damper on the midsummer business, but the beginning of the summer and the end of the summer was very, very busy. Our Caribbean business and our jets, I should say, are flying like crazy. We're flying more than twice as much than we did before, mostly north-south Florida and northeast for now. Our Caribbean business was doing very, very well, primarily driven by St. Bart's, which was open with requirements, testing requirements, et cetera. But recently, St. Bart's was, unfortunately, included in a new decree sent down from France that required even the overseas territories to restrict entry for the time being. We're hopeful that will change over the next few weeks. But there's a lot of demand for the Caribbean right now, and especially for St. Bart's. And we hope that when the borders open again, we'll be flying quite a bit again.
Now, that leads to another question. I mean, what kind of protocols and precautions do you take at Tradewind to keep passengers safe and healthy? And what are the requirements for passengers to fly in one of your aircraft?
Sure. Yeah, no, we implemented from the very beginning some pretty strict measures. We require each passenger to sign a declaration that they're free of symptoms, haven't been in contact, et cetera, et cetera. That has become commonplace now. We implemented that very, very early in the process, even before the CDC was recommending it. That of course is still in place. We are doing deep cleanings of the aircraft every night, including ozone treatment. And then we also do a disinfecting of the aircraft seats, all touch points, drink rail seats, et cetera, between each flight.
Right.
And that's quite important. And we've had to step up staffing for that and equipment and so on. But it's really important for people to have peace of mind before they're going to commit to that trip. So what we've seen is that with our clients, they're very comfortable given those protocols. The challenge only right now is really the travel restrictions that remain in place.
Absolutely.
We're very hopeful that travel passports will become more of a thing soon. Of course, vaccination is a big part of that, but also travel passports for testing, travel documents, required documents, and so forth. Because over the time, they have layered quite a few protocols, whether it be attestations of free of symptoms or testing requirements and so forth. And it's a bit of a disjointed system. And so we are, we're working closely with the vendors that are creating technology around really making that easier for passengers, because
Sure.
I do believe that some people are holding off because of the hassle factor.
Yeah, it is. And I, having just come back from a long trip where I had to get tested 4 different times, it was a bit of a hassle, but I got through it. It wasn't that, in the end, it wasn't as bad as not being there, put it that way.
Right.
The end. Now, let's talk a little bit about how travel advisors and travel agencies can work with Tradewind, and also obviously be compensated for booking your flights.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So travel advisors have been a big part of our business from the get-go. Focusing on luxury destinations like St. Bart's and Anguilla, where travel advisors are a major part of that business for the hotels, for us, and so on. So we made a strong push into enabling that as early as we could. And we, about 12 years ago now, got our flights into the GDS. So we're fully bookable in Sabre and Amadeus and Travelport properties, but also direct bookings. We have open access for certain agencies who do a lot of business with us, where they can book directly into our system. So you have the GDS component, you have that component, and every flight booked with us, scheduled or private charter, is commissionable.
That's great.
We feel very strongly that paying something on something is better than paying nothing on nothing. And so we try to be as generous as we can with commissions. And, going into this 10 or 12 years ago with, sort of marketing to travel agents, travel advisors, it was quite a surprise or shock to me that airlines were not commissioning like they used to, at least. And, but again, being in the luxury space, we feel it's very important.
Yeah, no, and obviously, I'm been around since '95 when the airline started to cap and cut commissions, and you did have lots of travel agencies who were really focused on booking airline tickets. They had to kind of rehash their business and turn it around to make themselves into real bookers of travel.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it's great that you started out recognizing the value of travel advisors, especially the higher end ones, and that goes to the whole point. I mean, the target customer, obviously, for a Tradewind flight is more of an upscale consumer. Is that the market you really cater to at this point?
It is at this point, yeah. What we do, whether it's the private lounges or the modern aircraft, we fly 2 pilots, for example, on every flight, even though we're not required to do so. Our cost structure in accomplishing that is quite substantial. So our focus is really on the leisure luxury markets, but also the business markets, where that efficiency is very important for obvious reasons. What we've been able to do as we grow is really learn how to be just as efficient and work on that cost structure to the point, and as a goal, is we'd like to get that to a point where we can serve more markets,
Sure.
More underserved markets. Looking towards the future post-COVID, as the airlines have really cut quite a bit of service. If they weren't being paid by the government right now, they would be cutting even more. But I think when the dust settles, there will be less service than there was before, especially in the regional sort of medium range, short range area. And so I feel like we are very well positioned to pick up the slack in that regard. And we're really focused on being able to expand beyond just the high end markets. It's always going to be a focus for us. We're set up for it. We like working within that world because it really allows us to provide more value to the client, more amenities, a better experience. But really to be able to serve certain other areas of the Caribbean, other areas of the Northeast, and other areas of the country, we're really looking to expand into a bit of a more affordable area of the market.
Now, a thought occurs to me, you don't have any code-share agreements with existing airlines, or maybe you do, in terms of so that you can kind of sort of a seamless experience?
We actually do. Well, we have 3 interlines, actually. Okay. We interline with American Airlines.
Okay.
We interline with United. and also British Airways. And British Airways primarily for the connection from London through Antigua to St. Bart's. The American Interline went live about a year and a half ago. United has been up for about 3 years. And those have been very, very, very important for us, especially for the Caribbean, where the connectivity is important. The marketing exposure is great. We're sold on their website and so forth, but also the convenience factor. You know, for us, the most important thing that we do is to create a seamless experience for the client. And when you book on the Interline, the baggage is transferred through without having to retrieve and recheck it, which is a big plus point for our clients.
Absolutely.
So we've seen those grow. We're working on the other airlines. I hope to launch with the other majors in the U.S. pretty soon.
Well, we've seen Delta and JetBlue really expanding in the Caribbean too, so hopefully you can get some deals with them as well. But you mentioned that, I immediately thought, we have to get down to San Juan or someplace to get to all these wonderful islands where you go. So it'd be great to know how to get there very easily. Now, in terms of as a travel advisor, how can travel advisors develop a relationship with Tradewind and really find out more about the company?
Sure, sounds good. So we are, while we are medium size at this point, 200 employees, we still like the high touch. So as far as agencies and travel advisors, what I'd really ask is they get in touch with me. And I'd love to meet them, love to have a personal relationship with them. And then we have a full marketing department where they can really give them everything that they need and arm them very well with how we fly, what we do, what is the value proposition, and then set them up with commissions and booking. But I'm happy to start with new advisors and new agencies. I'm happy to have the starting point as start the relationship there.
And should they email you? Where should they
email me? dzipkin@flytradewind.com or call our office and have them put them in touch with me. For general info, flytradewind.com is our website. And we keep it very posted on our, up-to-date travel advisories, also the travel restrictions in the primary places that we fly, our COVID protocols, all of the different types of flying that we do and the different ways that clients can purchase. So everything is there. But as I said, that we're high touch, so the personal relationship is important.
Well, David, I want to thank you for taking the time to explain Tradewind Aviation to me. I'd heard of it before, but didn't realize how easy it was eventually to get to St. Bart's. We were talking earlier about that very interesting airport that you fly into, St. Bart's, where you kind of bop over a hill and set it down really quickly. If you haven't done it before, it's an experience. It's also something to watch if you're in St. Bart's. And also these other wonderful, obviously, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket for more domestic service. You got a great little airline there going, whether it's scheduled or private charter. And it's really something, and you pay commission. So, boy, if you're a travel advisor now, I think you better give David send him an email and see if you have some clients that are going to these places. And it sounds like you're going to be growing. So you'll probably be going to a lot more places in the Caribbean and maybe elsewhere in the United States as well. But again, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I'm James Shillinglaw, and this is Insider Travel Report.